Good afternoon. Finally, we got the technique to almost work, so we are ready to begin this afternoon conference on desire. I mean, what a headline to have for a Wednesday afternoon. My name is Rasmus Nordqvist. I'm a member of the Parliament, part of the 𝗘𝗂𝗿𝗀 group, elected from Denmark. And I have the pleasure of hosting this afternoon. And when I got a call from Henriette from the Desire Project, I didn't hesitate to say yes, because, I mean, there's things I love here in life, and that is interdisciplinary work. I love participatory projects, and I love sustainability. And I get all three things this afternoon. So I'm really pleased to hosting you and to say welcome to all of you. I look very much forward to hear more about the concrete projects from both Slovenia, from the Netherlands, and from Denmark. I hope that we will learn things together, and that especially also we can take some best practice with us into the future, because this whole project is part of the new European Bauhaus. And my hope and dream and desire is that the new European Bauhaus indeed will continue in the future. It started up in the last legislative period, and we have to keep it alive, because actually when you look across the project that has been developed under this umbrella, it has been very exciting and something we need in Europe. So that should be my introduction, and welcome, and then over to you, Henriette.
Yeah. Thank you, Rasmus. Thank you for hosting. I know it's really, really busy times, not only in the Parliament, it should be on. Yeah, thank you. Not only in the Parliament, but in Europe as such. I'm Henriette, as it says. I'm from the Danish industry, or in short, DI. And the reason for me sitting here is that the work package that DI is responsible for is the exploitation and financial plan. And exploitation is perhaps not the most positive word, but it actually just EU lingo for how do we make the most of the results that we have found? How do we ensure that it's carried out also after our project ends? And this is why we are really pleased to be here today and share with you just a few of the findings. We can't explain you everything in the project, but we can take some specific projects. And the ones that we have chosen are those that are perhaps representing also some of the work that will be carried out in the incoming commission, we guess. But let's see. So let me just go through the program for the day. Christine, could you perhaps? I don't know why it doesn't work, but the next slide. Okay. But the program for today, it's also what I have circulated to you. So in a few seconds, we will get our friends from the Joint Research Center to give a few, or the overview of the new European Bauhaus, and perhaps point a bit to the future. Then very short about the Desire project. And we will get my colleagues on the project to highlight three topics: the social inclusion and citizens' engagement. And we will have circular economy and biodiversity. And we'll look a bit into the new economy. And then we'll have a panel debate. Hopefully these topics will ignite a good discussion, a panel debate with MEPs. And then we'll wrap it up with a number of recommendations that we will put forward as a project. And hopefully you will join me and the colleagues from the Desire project to have a drink and celebrate, because actually the project is coming to an end by the end of November. So yeah, I got the program right. So let me invite our colleague, I will say, from the Joint Research Center, 𝗘𝗂𝗿𝗶𝘴. I'm sorry if I pronounced it wrong, but the intention is good. So let's give a hand to 𝗘𝗂𝗿. It seems to work now.
So good afternoon to you all. Thank you to the European Parliament and to Desire for inviting us for this. It's always a pleasure to speak about the European Bauhaus.
You can't hear?
Cannot hear? Use this. Do you hear me better with this microphone? Yes? Okay. So I was saying it's always a pleasure to speak in the European Parliament and to the NEP community, NEP stakeholders on the NEP initiative. And I will give you a brief presentation of where we are with the European Bauhaus initiative, focusing a little bit on the Lighthouse demonstrators and on Desire, and then a short peek about the future, what is in the pipeline for the next few years for the European Bauhaus. As you know, most of you at least know for sure, the initiative started in 2020, launched by President von der Leyen. It's a policy and funding initiative that was presented as the human side of the European Green Deal, and that was based on the three values that you see in the slide. So sustainable, together, and beautiful. And if about sustainability and inclusiveness, we are very close, the European Bauhaus is very close to the policies that are developed in other parts of the European Commission and of the European institutions. Beauty is kind of a new element here that is introduced by the European Bauhaus. And above all, for the Bauhaus, it's very important that the three values are applied simultaneously. And that, I think, is really the difference and the benefit that the European Bauhaus brings to the policy landscape in the EU. Let's see if it works. Yeah. Okay, yes. So we are now, let's say, 3.5 years more or less into the initiative. The initiative started with a co-creation phase of 6 months, in which I believe some of you contributed to and helped co-create the initiative with us. That gave birth to the communication on the European Bauhaus that effectively launched the work after the co-creation phase of the initiative. And these have been 3.5 years that were very busy and full of events. We have now a very active and vibrant community of around, I have 1,400 there, but I think it's now 1,500 in fact, because we have been adding new members to the community. And we have done many other things that you see there, but I think for the purpose today, I would highlight that in these 3.5 years, we have managed to mobilize around 400 million euros of funding to new European Bauhaus projects, supporting around 500 of these projects for the new European Bauhaus. And this is not the only way through which we deliver the initiative. The NEP community is very important, is the cornerstone of the initiative, and I will talk about that next. But we also support and fund projects. We develop standards and guidelines to help bring these values and working principles of the Bauhaus to make them more understandable and usable, let's say. We try to mainstream the European Bauhaus into programs and policies in the European Union. And we work on increasing the awareness and the visibility of the work on European Bauhaus, promoting a movement, the creation of a movement that we see for some time, that the initiative is also a movement. So we see things happening in the European Bauhaus that are not only promoted by the European Commission, but come from especially our community. A community that, as I said, has around 1,500 members between partners, which are non-for-profit organizations, friends that are companies and public authorities. We integrate also prize winners, projects that have been funded by EU programs. We have a high-level roundtable with 19 members and national contact points in all member states. For those of you that have never seen it, I invite you to consult an European Bauhaus dashboard that is available from our website. You have a picture there of how it looks like, and each point is a project or a member of the community, and when you click on it, you have access to information about what it is, what has happened, what is happening, and they are divided by categories, so you can select what you want to see. It's quite useful and gives you a very good overview of the European Bauhaus community. As I said, we have funded 400 million euros of projects through 9 different EU programs. This has been an effort since the beginning to get these programs to contribute, to create synergies with the European Bauhaus, to launch calls for new European Bauhaus topics and based on European Bauhaus values. And this has been happening since 2021 with success. One of the most emblematic types of projects that have been supported by the programs were the lighthouse demonstrators that were launched early on in the initiative. So already in September 2021, there was the first call for lighthouse demonstrators to basically show the way of where the European Bauhaus initiative should go. So large-scale projects that could demonstrate how the NEP values could be implemented in practice simultaneously, how that could work, how that could be replicated by other projects. And in fact, we had, in September 2021, as I said, the first call was launched, and already in May 2022, the Commission announced the first 5 lighthouse demonstrators, of which Desire was one of them. And later on, in September 2022, a 6th project was added to this. These projects were the aim of the call, the aim of the projects was to bring innovative ideas and solutions that could show us the way forward for the European Bauhaus, and they would have 2 to 3 years to put these projects in practice. The projects would be spread across Europe, providing a diversity of results that can be used, of course, in the project and replicated by other European Bauhaus projects. The Commission is very happy to see that the first of these projects is coming to an end and being able to share results with us, that the result of this collaboration with 24 partners, I understand, is now coming to this stage where we can learn from it, where other projects can use its results. And also, I think the European Bauhaus Initiative can use these results. So we are very curious to see what has been done, what are the conclusions, to hear from you today and in other moments, in other opportunities. And we think that there are areas in particular from what we see that has been done by Desire that can be particularly useful. For instance, on transdisciplinarity, which is very important for us, and we've seen that it's also important in Desire. On the engagement of citizens and communities, how to give people a voice, on the need to build trust by the citizens and the public authorities to make transformations on the ground. On beauty, on which we have been working quite hard to explain what it means to us, this idea of aesthetics beyond functionality, but also quality of experience. But of course, it's always different to have something on the ground that demonstrates that value than writing about it or trying to explain it by words. And also on place-based transformation, which is an aspect that is also central to Desire, and that is also quite important to us, and it will be very important for us in the future. I was saying to my colleague, in fact, just before starting to speak, that in fact the title, the name of this Lighthouse project is Designing an Irresistible Circular Society, is a very nice name. So it's not always the case of projects where you need to choose names for projects. I know it's difficult, but this one is very, very nice, and is also a name that very much corresponds to what the European Bauhaus is and what the European Bauhaus wants to do. So the Commission is looking forward to hearing from you and to hear how these results will drive Desire forward, how it can be replicated by other projects, and how it can help us shape the future of the initiative. Finally, a little word about the future that I was asked explicitly to bring here, and I think it's important. So I've said that in 3.5 years, we have done all of this, we have funded all these projects. However, it was always a bit on this basis that we would speak to a specific EU program and they would do a call for us. And then we'd speak to another EU program and they would do a call for us. And so the initiative grew to a point where we felt that we needed more structure, more predictability, more coherence to the European Bauhaus initiative. And this is why in March this year, the Commission adopted the idea of a NEP facility. So an instrument, funding instrument for the European Bauhaus that is anchored in Horizon Europe, in the Horizon Europe program, and that has the two components that you see on the slide. So a research and innovation component that is really funded by Horizon Europe, and that has a budget of 120 million per year during the duration of the facility, that is 2025 to 2027, and the rollout component for the deployment of projects on the ground that will use the other EU programs as we have been using them already, but now also to a special link to the R&I component, and so allowing us to have this coherence and this predictability that I was talking about. For this rollout component, although of course, because it's based on many different programs, we don't have a budget defined, the President has said publicly that the ambition is to have the same amount, to have the same ambition for the rollout component that we have for the R&I, meaning that we should be able to support with 120 million euros per year during this period also the rollouts of NEP projects. I think this is it. I think I would not, I would say just one thing, one last thing, that this NEP facility started in March. Of course, it's also been built together with the NEP stakeholders, with the NEP community. We just finished a consultation phase that started in spring. There was a public survey that I hope many of you replied to and provided input. And we are currently working on a roadmap, so on basically an implementation plan for the NEP facility that we hope to adopt before spring, let's say.
25?
Before spring 25, yes. So our aim is end of February to 2025. And with this I finish, and I'm available for questions if that's the case now or later on.
Yeah. Thank you,
Thank you
Arthur.
very much.
Yeah, give it. I think if there's like 1 or 2 questions right now, I think please feel free. Yeah, also, please. Yeah, state your name and perhaps where you're from so we get acquainted.
Yeah. Hello, my name is 𝗘𝗂𝗍𝗍. I'm from 𝗘𝗂𝗍𝗶, and we are coordinating 𝗘𝗂𝗍, the 𝗘𝗂𝗍 project. I want to know if you already thinking about a new European Bauhaus as an aspect of the next 7-year framing budget of the EU.
Good question.
Let's go for the money.
I reply already, or yeah. So I can reply already. Of course, we are thinking about it. There are early discussions about what will be the next multi-annual financial framework inside the Commission. I'm sure you have seen some news that came out about that. There are still no concrete discussions. I think we have had initial discussions between ourselves. Now the new Commission will take office, and I believe that will be the moment in which we will start discussing seriously up to the top of the Commission how this will look like in the next financial framework. So for now, we have this plan until 2020. This instrument until 2027, and then surely there will be something, but we still don't know what it will be.
Thank you, Arthur.
There is one more question, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Good afternoon. Christoph Sykes for Construction Products Europe. Just to get the ball rolling and to maybe challenge you a little bit, the focus in the next Commission is obviously going to be on affordable housing. And when the NEB was presenting at one of the Rebuild Ukraine conferences, the Ukrainian partners, their first reaction was, this is too expensive. So our challenge has been in the last month is how do we reconcile affordability with, call it circularity, sustainability. And then something that's closer to the industry's concerns is we've always said sustainable buildings are defined at building level. And for this, we need product and technology neutrality. Now, you know where I'm getting at. Is this something that you have found within the NEB program, this neutrality of products and technologies? And so how do we ensure sustainability basically in terms of affordability, because that is what is required and called for in the next program, but also neutrality in terms of competitiveness on the market so that we can drive towards sustainability in all aspects. Thank you.
Yeah. So starting off by your first question on affordability. Of course, it's a challenge, affordability. Affordability is part of our DNA as an initiative because it's part of the inclusiveness value of the new European Bauhaus. So it's one of the dimensions of the inclusiveness value. And I think, yes, it's something we need to work on to find ways to have new European Bauhaus projects that are also affordable. I think everything we try to do and design goes in that direction. We have, if you look at our compass, that is one dimension that is in it. We will launch soon a self-assessment tool that will have a part for big projects and a part for small projects that follow the values and the working principles of the new European Bauhaus. That is also tools that will allow project developers, anyone in fact, but I think it's quite useful for project developers, project owners to self-assess their projects on European Bauhaus values. And I think another document that we have, another tool that we've published recently that can give a contribution to that is the investment guidelines that we prepared together with the European Investment Bank. So I understand the concerns also of Ukrainians, although I must say Ukraine has been quite enthusiastic in the adoption of the European Bauhaus values, and even has gone sometimes further than other countries inside the EU. On the second aspect of project neutrality, of course, it's broader than the European Bauhaus, but it's also something that is quite relevant for especially the R&I component of the NEB facility. So the topics of the R&I component of the NEB facility, the research that will be possible to do with this 120 million per year, can also go in that direction. And that's something that, as I said, there was this consultation, and also the R&I component was very much formatted by the input we got under that consultation. Understanding what you're saying, that if I understand your reference to competitiveness, that also goes quite in line with the Commission line at the moment, that we need to be competitive and we need to be sustainable, and we can only be competitive in sustainability, so it's the way for competitiveness. So I fully agree.
Thank you, Arthur. I hope you and your colleague will stay put, so we have you for the discussion as well.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I would like my three colleagues to join me up here. Anna, Diana, and Cole, will you join me here? And then we'll proceed. We will present a very short presentation of the ΔESIRE project. As you can see, it states 𝗘𝗂𝗿𝗶𝗴. Those of you who know him or knows him, he's not here, unfortunately. Torben became ill, and I have promised to give the presentation on his behalf. But I will start by saying, on behalf of the whole ΔESIRE project, a special thanks to 𝗘𝗂𝗿𝗶𝗴 and Torben in particular, because they have guided us through these 2 years very prominently. They have kept us on track and kept up spirit, so thank you. As Arthur said, our name, ΔESIRE, actually means something. It's an abbreviation of Designing the Irresistible Circular Society. And designing is a method that we have used, and circular society is what we are heading at, but we think we can make it in a way that's irresistible. This has actually been a driver for us. How can we make something irresistible? And it actually, discussions in the project all along turned out that, to no surprise, irresistibility is not the same for every person. So that is actually what we have also tried to, is to gather different aspects of irresistibility along the way and make room for all kinds. We are 24 partners, and the reason for us being that many is that we have 8 sites in 5 countries. And from the very beginning, what we started out with was that we spent a lot of time discussing and trying to define 5 principles that could guide us along the way. And as you can see, they are very much in line, of course, with the values and principles of the New European Bauhaus. But we have decided, or we did decide, on movement, but expanded it a bit to give agency to all actors. We talked about belonging, where we nurture a sense of belonging to a place. We talked about circularity and also widen it a bit in the sense that it's unleash a circular mindset. And with the aesthetics, as also Arthur pointed at, we have really tried to go perhaps beyond beauty and expand the concept and also talking about the sensority and sensoring and feeling. And then also biodiversity, that we embrace a planetary perspective. For each of the sites, they have decided on their own which of the principles could work for them, which could guide them, be helpful in the process. So we have 3 sites in Denmark and 4 in other European countries, and we have 3 overall themes that we have worked with. So it's creating social and inclusive housing, reconciling city with nature, and transforming through symbiotic relationships. And then we have similar or mirrored these 3 themes in Amsterdam, Riga, Milano, Turin, and Slovenia, and we will hear from a couple of them later. So, through this 2-year period of time, a lot of things has happened, and it's impossible with such short time to give you everything. But we have designed the principles, we have made toolkit, we have produced, and I say we, but on the site, there's been a lot of work carried out to make new tools, but we have also been inspired by others who have done something, and we have gathered it all. We have the research-based analysis, we have done the site experiences and future plans, the innovation biographies, and the narratives of irresistible circular futures, where we have some examples here that you can take with you. I can only recommend it. And then a digital learning hub. Until yesterday, it was a website. Now it's been really well organized. I will come back to that in a short while. And then we're also working, I've been working at seeing how we can do the adaptation and scaling EU-wide. Furthermore, we did a paper on new economy, designing our future. So how do we actually think about our economy and the way we look at the economy, going from a fossil fuel economy to actually an economy which supports this circular transformation that we are looking for. And it's the whole thinking of the systemic transformation. And we have also done the first path, so to say, to establish this Irresistible Cities Lab, where we have citizens' engagement and look at red tape and barriers. It's very... So looking ahead, so when I said, and it says here, launching, actually, our colleague, Hanne, who is in charge of the communication, have been working all night. So I can tell you, on our website now, it is a digital learning hub. So hopefully, even though you're not that familiar with the project, you can get some quite good help and inspiration from our website. We have divided into learn, discover, and connect. And one way of connecting is through the Irresistible Cities Lab, where it's a community of practice. So, of course, the Desire project with the 24 partners is a community of practice, but we also see on the sites, all the partners that you have worked with at the sites are also some community of practice, and we hope to scale that. And again, we have to thank Blocksoft for both hosting the digital learning hub, but also be the ones carry on the work on the Irresistible Cities Lab. So it will continue also when we finish here today. And let me just end with a quote from our good friend, 𝗘𝗂𝗍𝗶, who some of you might have heard about. But yes, last year he joined us. I have been involved in the work we have done on the new NEB economy. And he said, we are in a hurry, so we need to slow down, which is very strange. But I think it actually means, and that's at least how we interpreted it, that yes, we are in a hurry with the green transition. But if we not want to have citizens included and involved in this, it takes time. And there's like a pivot point until you reach this kind of trust where then you can actually build on the transformation. So that is for the politicians and policymakers. Have that in mind when you do policies. But that is for me, for now, and very short about the Desire project overall. And Diana, will you take the floor?
This one?
Yes.
Which one? If I click?
There.
This one?
Yeah.
So, welcome to the Wildeman neighborhood in Amsterdam, Amsterdam New West. When visiting the area, you will notice there is a lot of it's a vulnerable place. It's a place with signs of poverty, with signs of health issues of all sorts, of discrimination, and everything that's related to it. But if you take a better look, you will see people caring for one another, green spaces, and also a wide variety of initiatives that are trying to make a better place. Exactly that's where we, as two partners, two NGOs that are embedded in the neighborhood, started with the Desire project. The beach and samen wonen, samen leven. So we invited the residents we knew to be the leading designers of the change they were looking for in their neighborhood.
So, do you want to change the...
Oh, sorry. So. Oh, too fast. Although, so they made their own design teams. They called them design and do groups. And they made their own activities plans and took the responsibility for the substantial part of the budget, of the Desire budget, we handed over to them. So they took responsibility for the money. And although the redevelopment in the neighborhood is going on, part of the neighborhood is already demolished, and it's a big issue there. They shifted their way of looking from housing and still top-down redevelopment of the physical place to making places for civic engagement. So that's what their focus was. Topics of the design and do groups were neighborhood economy, healthy connections, peaceful neighborhoods, and Wildeman Green. And they were all covering the new European Bauhaus mission from within the neighborhood. It's so fast, eh? Yeah. The community-led design teams, they started to enrich the living environment right away, not just after, but during the design process. They created situations for collaboration and for critical reflection, such as a local newspaper they set up. Activities were, for instance, a mobile coffee hub where people could meet and learn making coffee themselves. Community gardens, healthy breakfasts for elderly people, a circular waste collecting company, and a lot more. So they set up various projects in a very short time. Altogether, a radical turn, we could say. It revealed it revealed what citizens are up to. That inevitable frictions that have been there, so there were all kinds of trust issues and so on, but in the end it made them stronger. And finally they create relationships that make a strong neighborhood ecology. So the network becomes more tight. But unfortunately, necessary collaboration, for instance, with the departments of the municipality often slows down implementation of plans. In making steps to take ownership over their own plans, citizens need support. Let's not forget they're making steps, but let's not forget for long promises have been made and still are to solve problems for them. Finally, I would like to make a positive note. Some initiatives of the design and do groups are further developed in collaboration with policymakers from the municipality as an example of community well-building. So some positive things are going on, and this is a very important one, because with Wilderman Green as a starting point, so the very local in the neighborhood setup, Wilderman Green, it was a starting point for a green cooperative that has been set up already in Amsterdam New West, where 160,000 people live. So it has already started. And the circular waste collecting company is on its way. So I think this is quite an achievement in such a short time. Let's make things together. I think that's where we're talking about. That's what we want, what we all want. Wilderman, the Wilderman neighborhood is one of a kind, like every site in the Desire project. But altogether, the sites, the European sites, contribute to making a movement of placemaking, value-driven design, not with, not for communities, and of hope. I think that's what we are looking for, hope. So you're welcome, you're all welcome to be part of this transition. And you're also very welcome to visit us in Amsterdam, but all the other sites, to see what's going on and to be part of it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You take that one? Thank you. Dobrodošli v BTC v Slovenija. So welcome to BTC Slovenia. It's in almost 500,000 square meters business, retail and shopping area in Slovenia. I represent 𝗘𝗂𝗿, Slovenian Business Network, Sustainable Business Network. So our focus was actually, it was completely different than Amsterdam project, which is housing. So we have a business area, and our intention was to help companies to understand the values of Neue Bauhaus and how to implement it and connect it with the Green Deal goals. So firstly, we were focused on circular economy and biodiversity, but we did implement all three others values. So we saw at the end that we made a movement to which everybody wanted to belong. We implemented circular economy, biodiversity principles, and at the end, Core with his group helped us to make aesthetics values tangible for BTC. Maybe just to mention at the beginning, when we got the project, we were asking ourselves, what will be the outputs? And so also the BTC owners and their business community were asking us, how many trees will we have built? How many roundabouts will we get? And we said, and also the Danish partner said, none. We actually don't know what we will get at the end. So with the whole this community of experts, we were making this principles, values manifesto, and we were testing different tools on our sites. And at the end, we really got amazing projects that now BTC business community and also our other partners want to implement, and also we are implementing these principles in our work. So we did check the construction industry challenges. So this sector is producing, it uses almost half of virgin resources globally. It consumes 12% of fresh water, produces 40% of global emissions and solid waste. It's scaling, it will double until 2060, and it employs a lot of workforce. This is globally, but it also affects БТЦ. So building more sustainably will be essential to achieve sustainable development goals and also global climate targets. So it's no more a question whether the construction industry should change, but how we must change it. And also we were glad that we onboarded БТЦ and our partners in this story, starting thinking how to change. So urgently, we need to cut emissions in the built environment, and we need to change how we design and construct buildings. So we were focused during this time, beside these principles, also on decarbonization, which is quite a huge topic globally, because there are a lot of potentials to reduce emissions, materials, impact nature, and at the end to secure well-being of people. Important part here was also measuring KPIs and data, because for the business it means tangible when they are deciding on the data-based decisions. So we did also checked many recommendations how the building system should be by 2050. And renovation must be a priority. The buildings must be circular with low environmental impact, reducing energy. Fairness and inclusion is important. At the end, nature positive buildings are becoming even the law. Also, as I mentioned, the renovation potential is huge, and we are lagging behind. That's why we need different financial incentives. We started to speak with financial institutions. They see the potential, but we need to discuss with the owners, with the tenants, with different stakeholders, and of course, with the European Union, who's providing financial support and also the financial support on national level, that the renovation can be stable and meaningful. Circular economy is bringing a new way of thinking, and new practices. We wanted to show that they are bringing new economic value as well as broader value, social and environmental, but the policy which will support this with different activities, and of course strong innovation and research support is needed to implement circular economy thinking. And last but not least, the value of biodiversity for healthy people and planet was really important for БТЦ, because it's actually the hottest point in Ljubljana. It's a heat island. During this project and also before, they were doing several projects with nature-based solutions, but with GXN and them, we were making plans, which core will present, how to make small, medium, and bigger projects to implement biodiversity. Above all, a multi-stakeholder approach was crucial, because nobody can achieve those goals alone. We were working with several institutions, decision makers, academic institutions, financial, business partners, getting their outputs. We were having workshops, hackathons. We were involving even young people to get their insights, and at the end we did a conclusion, and GXN Architectural Office made a very nice vision for БТЦ, and this vision became tangible. It's at the end of the project, it's finished, but we are really proud that this is actually the beginning of new renovation of the whole area and setting a benchmark for European greenest and most sustainable hub. And we saw that top-down and bottom-up approach have to go hand in hand to achieve all these goals for our future. Winston Churchill said, "We shaped our buildings and they shape us." And with Desire Project, we say, we shape the future we desire. Thank you.
Yeah. Last but not least, Core, will you take off?
Thank you, Henriette. Can you hear me? Yeah. So my name is 𝗘𝗂𝗿𝗶𝘀𝗍𝗂. I'm a partner in GXN, and I've been invited to say a few things about the new European Bauhaus economy in 7 minutes or less, I believe it was, so no biggie. Very briefly about our office. We are a architectural research and consultancy office, so we don't do architecture. We work we do design work next to the architects, thinking about how to improve the environmental footprints of buildings on one side, and the experience of people and well-being of people in the buildings on the other. But what sets us apart is this research focus that we have. We use half our time on doing externally funded research projects into things like new materials, co-design processes, things like design, and we think about how we can scale that up. And that sort of research focus is part of how I see, from our side at least, the contours of a new emerging economy. People are realizing that business as usual might not be so good business anymore, and that leads to a new interest and openness to integrate research into commercial projects to figure out what a good solution is. If you build something, it's going to last for a long time. If you get it wrong, you're making a mistake that's going to be very costly, not just for you, but also for future generations, and we're seeing an increased openness toward this. So rather than talk about the economy as such, I wanted to talk about 3 key drivers that we're seeing from where we're working. There's probably more. A little bit about the drivers and how they're changing the way we work. So if we're looking at the first one, the CSRD, the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive, is of course changing how we work. It's translating through to the developers who are giving us tasks. We are being asked to be taxonomy compliant. So we are developing now things like this. This is our ESG compass, a way that we can make sure that our projects gather intelligence and data so that we can report back to the people who are hiring us. I think what's interesting with this is how we might be able to use this focus on data and compliance to something that becomes a little bit more creative. It's an opening also to engage developers in new discussions, and we saw that actually in BTC City, working alongside Anna and the team there. As Anna was saying, BTC City is an urban heat island. It's, as you can see, mainly concrete. It's not going to be a particularly nice place to be in the summer in 25 years when the average temperature is going to rise by about 4 degrees. When having this discussion, we were being asked, how many trees, what does it look like, how can we document the performance of what we're addressing here? And I don't think we were able to go as far as we did with these guys. Oh, it's very lively. Without having that discussion about documentation and impact on their ESG strategy and what they're reporting back to their clients. So as Anna was saying, we developed a number of different strategies, small, medium, and large, easy to implement, longer term. This is just some of the examples for how to green the area. And then working with documentation tools, this is called Urban Greening Factor, to basically put a number to the impact of that greening in qualitative aspects of greening, linking that then through to future climate modeling of how these greening factors could impact future temperatures in the area. So quite experimental, something that requires a lot of fiddling and thinking about future climate models, which we're still working on developing, but something that we wouldn't have had a chance to do, I don't think, if we weren't asked to basically document impacts in the way that we have been doing. And this is something we are now seeing on commercial projects outside of this research. This is a project in Amsterdam where we are being asked a lot of the same questions about climate resilience and how to document impacts of what we're doing on these. So I think part of this is actually driving a longer term view from the developers in some cases. And what we should be thinking about in the new European Bauhaus and other places is how we use this compliance focus more creatively and also developing new solutions that can create value on projects. Another driver is a generally maturing policy landscape. This is from London, strictly speaking, not the EU, I know, but we're seeing similar things in Amsterdam and other places. More policies and more guidance is coming out around some of the key aspects of especially decarbonization and circular economy. This is great because it allows the people who make decisions to be more ambitious in the claims or questions they're asking us. If you know what you're asking for, if you know how to count it, if you know how to comply with the policy, you can be more ambitious. And we're seeing that on a lot of projects in London, for example. So right now in London, there's a lot of questions coming out about what you do with demolished buildings. Like, should you even demolish buildings? What are you doing with the existing materials you take out of it, how do you get that back into projects? Increasingly, we are seeing a focus on not demolishing buildings. These things are driven by local policy that impact planning, that becomes a risk if you haven't dealt with it when you go to planning, and that's really changing, again, this notion of doing research upfront to make sure we make the most use of the existing buildings rather than just tear them down. Something quite exciting. The challenge with this, which would be interesting in the EU framework, is that we're seeing this mainly at a city level. So policy looks different in Amsterdam, in London, in Brussels, and other places, quite significantly different. It raises a lot of questions about high degree of knowledge is required to be able to operate creatively in these different jurisdictions. And when we're comparing impacts, we're comparing apples and oranges, for example. So there's something there about streamlining frameworks that would be interesting to debate. Finally, just thinking about the market as well, what we're seeing is what's been called the flight to quality. Very briefly, it's basically the notion that in commercial real estate, so office buildings, newly built, super sustainable offices with all the bells and whistles are performing well, meaning that they attract tenants, they have low vacancy, and you can get a high lease. Everything else is sort of dropping off. Perversely, that means that we're being asked to develop new buildings with a lot more sustainable bells and whistles in them. But older buildings, even buildings that are 10, 20 years old, are now obsolete from a market perspective. So we're actually getting more buildings that are being torn down before their time due to something like this. On the positive side, this nervousness at the base of the real estate model means that we are getting a lot more questions around how we can engage future users to make sure that a project is actually future-proof and think about the needs of future tenants, for example. So this is an example at a large scale where we're working on a master plan in Amsterdam, where we've been asked by the client there and the city to really explore who are the people who are going to be using this new place, how are they going to experience it, how do we integrate that into the planning process. We can see that that helps in the planning process as well. And we are layering, it's a bit of a funny slide, so you can't really see that, but we have a lot of different new methodologies for thinking about the future uses, using climate modeling, using ethnographic methods, visiting the site, talking to users in different ways, getting the user perspective front and center in the design process. We experimented with something similar in terms of reaching out to new user groups in the new European Bauhaus project Desire. This is 𝗘𝗂𝗍 in Denmark. This is a social housing association where we are seeing a redevelopment of that area there. That's a parking lot that's going to be turned into a new open park. 𝗘𝗂𝗍𝗶, who is here today, asked us and other partners in design to look into how we might engage young people in the design process of this. So we developed a simple framework and model for how to bring these in to the design process, basically taking them through what we would if we were doing this as a competition in a studio, having them develop sketches, build models, select materials, create enough material about something that they knew most about, which is their local area, to allow our designers to take their ideas and turn that into rendered out sketches and great models. The idea is that everything you see in these architectural models is actually coming directly one-to-one from the students, and we reflect their work and engagement directly in the thing we've done. 𝗘𝗂𝗍𝗶 has since worked with 𝗘𝗂𝗍, a local organization, to think about how to take the learnings from this, which is the actual projects, of course, but also the principles behind them, and put that into tendering processes so that it actually can impact the future design of this area. These were the key things. So I think 3 questions I would like to throw into the debate. How do we make sure that a focus on CSRD taxonomy becomes about more than compliance and can become drivers of creative design engagement? How do we make sure that we can streamline the new policies that are coming out across the different jurisdictions that we have in the EU? Use that again to make sure that we can understand what good looks like across this. And how do we make sure that we can put the future users front and center in the design process through different incentives here as well? Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Rasmus, will you come up here now? And thank you to you. You can leave. Thank you. Yeah. I have to be completely honest because we are not running according to schedule. So I don't know if there are any other MEPs. I saw 1 or 2 leaving. So if you're the only one.
I'm the one.
Good. Then I'll actually, Arthur, will you be willing to sit up here as well? Just we can question you really. I was wondering, Jutta, are you here? Will you join us as well? Will you be willing to that? Yeah? Yeah, hopefully. I can just... I'm sorry to take you in here on this one. I don't even know.
Nice to meet you, European Commission.
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah, that's it. Whatever you can also. Yeah. Then I think we'll change it a bit more to more just open debate at some of the topics that have been discussed here. That's at least what I will suggest. This is what we call in-the-moment facilitation. And perhaps now I have captured you and forced you here. Perhaps you should say a few words of who you are.
Yes,
and,
yes, and where I come from.
Yeah.
Yes, so good evening, and yeah, thank you for the project. Thank you for the invitation. It's really a pleasure. Yes, so my name is Jutta Kastner. I'm policy officer in the European Commission, actually in the Director General for Education, Youth, Sports and Culture. And you might wonder, why am I here? Because we are also actively working on the architecture sector, or maybe more on the architecture policy, but again, we are very much under subsidiarity because architecture is considered as one of the culture and creative sectors. We are supporting through our policies and also in particular through the Creative Europe program, but also through the Erasmus program. That is why architecture policy is under the umbrella of DG Education, Culture, Youth and Sports. So, and my particular role in this is following up on, maybe some of you have heard, back in 2020. So, going back to the history, when I see also the topics that you addressed and also the topics that colleagues from European Bauhaus address, are very much their origins in the Davos Baukultur process that started back in 2018 and kept on developing and kept on being the reference for our architecture policies. And a lot of the criteria that have been taken up by the new European Bauhaus initiative have their roots actually in this process that in 2018 were kind of signed by the culture ministers in Davos. And maybe some of you might know there has been a follow-up 5 years afterwards. So there is now a European Davos Alliance that has been founded also in Switzerland, which is very much now linked to the World Economic Forum. That's also the secretariat of this alliance, which is an endeavor because after 5 years of the starting of the process, it has been found, okay, policy, member states, governments, they are now kind of alerted and they're kind of, if you see, for example, one of our stakeholders, the Architect Council of Europe, has published a study just this year about the landscape of European architecture policy. So in how far all these movements and endeavors and different initiatives have been taken up by governments and ministries to really like also, like you say, or somebody said, bottom up, top down needs to go hand in hand. So you need a policy, you need bottom up initiatives to really come to results that we would like to see across Europe. So the initiators of the Davos Baukultur process came to this conclusion. So there is an alert, being an alert and being an interest and also policy movements. We have now to bring the private sector into this process. And if you see they have published a website also, the 𝗘𝗂𝗿𝗀 𝗖𝗶𝘀 Now you see also more and more partners from the private sector, also like from the building sector we heard before, like affordability, like also like strengthen exactly that, bringing material in the market that are more affordable, that are going in line with, like you say, economic factors, but also with sustainability factors. For 𝗘𝗂𝗿𝗀 is one of them. And also real estate developers, because we also know affordability sometimes goes against the interest from real estate developers. So you have this ecosystem of this 𝗘𝗂𝗿𝗀. Then in the process and nearly at the same time, member states experts have been called in the framework of the culture policy to work on, because there were, what we say, we have this ecosystem of policy documents that come from member states, from the Council of Europe, that call the Commission to work on topics. And then we have this possibility to work with member states experts. So they have been gathered for a period of a year, I'm sorry, and have worked on high quality architecture for everyone. So that's again a kind of a policy milestone, and they have to publish their report in 2021. And I can only recommend everybody who is working in this area to take note of this report, because it is the basis of our work. And for example, lately, following up on the recommendations of these experts, one of them was kind of capacity building to decision makers at city and regional level, you know, also again unlock the potential, unlock initiatives, support initiative, advocate. We had a discussion the other day also to bringing initiatives like yours forward and support them beyond also EU funding. So one of their recommendations was capacity building, and we have launched a series of 12 peer learning visits on different topics, and where we brought stakeholders together. We are now just closing this, and we'll publish our recommendations from these visits. And all these initiatives are funded under Creative Europe.
Thank you. Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for the journey. I was wondering, perhaps Rasmus, it will be fair to also give you the floor and give a few reflections of what you have heard.
Yes, thank you, and thank you very much for the free presentation. I think it was really interesting to dive into. One of you said about that if we want to engage citizens, it takes time. But I think what also, I mean, I've learned from projects like this is it might take time to engage and do the participatory part of the projects, but you save time in other parts of it, because when you then have to implement, start building or construct, that's when you save time because it has been worked through. You also save time in breaking it in afterwards, because when we create urban spaces, it takes time for citizens, local communities to take it over, to use it as well. If they've been engaged in this process, it goes much faster. So I think, I mean, one of the learning following also what some of the project that's been in Denmark, which I have before coming down here, I think it's key that we really implement this across what we are doing, the engagement and the participation from the people who are going to use it. That's also what we learned from I mean, the last few decades of architecture policy, that we need this engagement. So that was one thing. And then I was thinking a bit about what you also said about the private sector now, and also the question we had before. I think it's, to be fair, I think we from political side, both European but also national and local side, need to be quite clear in what is it we want. Because if we have clear guidelines, we know the private sector is going to join along. And specifically that question about demolishing buildings just to build new, I mean, we know it's totally unsustainable. the materials cost and everything. I mean, we need to be above and beyond that by now. And unfortunately, what we see across Europe is still buildings being demolished instead of being reconstructed, rebuilt, changed. And that's something as well I think we need to, from political side, again, from European, from national, from local side, need to be much more active in going in and say this has to be the past. I mean, if we actually believe in creating sustainable cities, the idea about taking down buildings because we need change is in the past. Now it's about recreating what we have instead. It might be more expensive, but we have other bottom lines to take into account as well. And there, I think to be sustainable, we need to keep this in the past and move on from this. And luckily, I know a lot of architects. Just to say, I mean, I'm a designer by education, been in the fashion industry, and back in the 90s when I was in design college, going together with architect students, it was about doing this new building. That was their thing. When I visit architect college now and schools across Europe now, I mean, you see people actually is working in a total different way. It's about creating spaces that are being used. And I think that's really what we need to, on a political level, understand, which we are beginning to do. These projects are part of that understanding, that learning we have. But I think we need to move much faster and further quite quickly on all political levels in order to create, especially the urban spaces we need now and in the future. The last thing I wanted to say as well is, I mean, especially the last year and what we've seen across Europe of climate-related catastrophes, is that we also need to think in the climate adaptation into this. How do we create the cities that are actually also able to stand against all the changes we're seeing? And again, I think we can do this in an engaging way because we know that the knowledge about where the problem is don't always come from outside. It's also people living there. And when you visit cities, people know where the problems are. They also have ideas how to solve them. And when we have good architects, designers going in, working with the citizens there, we can create solutions much faster.
Okay, good afternoon. My name is Alexandre D'Angelo from the European Commission, the Director General for Research and Innovation, and I would like to thank you for this presentation. Thank in particular the Desire Consortium and the partners for all the work that has been done. In 1 hour, you have given us a flavor and a taste of what has been done in a couple of years. So I'm really looking forward to read more about the project. I would like to make one remark, and I have then 2 questions. As regards the remark, of course, we need to keep in mind that the Desire project is a lighthouse project. So it's really a pioneer project. It's casting a light, which is in French we say c'est un phare dans la nuit. So it's really something strong. We were speaking before about the name Desire, which is very well chosen, but it's also a lighthouse, so carrying a lot of hope, and I think this is something extremely strong in this context of the new open Bauhaus that has been established very recently. So this is my remark, keeping in mind that it's something very strong symbolically, but also in concrete terms. Then I would have 2 questions. First question is as regards replicability. So we heard in the presentation that situations are different from one space to another, from et cetera, et cetera. So how about replicability? How can we make sure that we can replicate this and that all the efforts that have been done by the consortium, by the partners, all the funds that have been invested also by the European institutions will, how to say, be used, demultiplied, so with this replicability. So this is my first question. If you can give us a little bit some feedback about replicability. And then I would have the second question is about implementation and deployment. So it's good to have to come to results, to have learnings, and that's very important. But then it needs to be put, I would say, in operation. It needs to be deployed. So is there a deployment strategy, and are there structures, bodies in place in a way or in another that will ensure that this deployment will happen, I would say, EU-wide and maybe further. So this would be my second question. First question as regard replicability, and second as regard implementation and deployment strategy. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your very kind words. And we are, of course, always open to give you much more details, and we can do that bilaterally. But I think for your question about the replicability or how to replicate, are there any of the colleagues that want to respond, reply? Yes, Åse? And Hans-Jørgen, you just...
Okay. Thank you for this question, because of course this is an important issue for us, and we are thinking in more lines here regarding implementation, deployment, and replicability. First of all, replicability. The 𝗘𝗂𝗿 project is really a place-based project. We are focusing on what is happening at the base, at each place. Therefore, the normal way of scaling is not something that we think is possible. We cannot take what happened in Amsterdam or in Ljubljana and make it be done like that, one-to-one, in another place. But we can learn from the approaches, the way we have been doing things in Amsterdam and in Ljubljana, for instance, and in some of our other sites. And this learning, this inspiration, can be replicated, you could say, in other sites. And for the framework for that is the digital learning hub, could say, is one where we collect all the different results, all the different learnings, the way that we have been working, but also where we connect with the consortium, also in the future, in the sense that we want to make it possible for the future interested parties to access more knowledge, to access deeper, by getting or contacting those who were involved directly with what happened in each of the sites. And then for the implementation and deployment, we are just finalizing, and I'm saying it because I'm the one who's doing it on a sort of practical level, finalizing what we call a financial plan, but it's actually territorial transformation plans for each of the 8 sites. And this is not my work alone. Each of the organizations involved in all our sites have been deeply involved in defining what should the next concrete steps be, also regarding funding, because we can't continue with what we want to do without funding, external funding. So all these 3 aspects are included both in the learning we want to create, in the plan that we are creating, and finally also in the Irresistible Cities lab that we are setting up. And that 𝗏𝗏𝗏 where I'm working, where I come from, will be running this Irresistible Cities lab. And it's a community of, first of all, the desire partners, but also extending, enlarging, engaging more partners First of all, you could say well, obvious partners would be those who have been involved from the sites. For instance, the Amsterdam municipality, who is not a partner in Desire but have been deeply involved in the site activities, or some of the other organizations, NGO companies and others. And we have set up a plan for, first of all, online events to keep this community going, because one thing we learned through these 2 years is that we need to build deep relationships, before we can really transform. Now we have a deep relationships within the consortium. Now we need to expand that. We need to build on that for further implementation and deployment of our results.
I don't know. Hans-Jørgen, do you want to comment also? Or? Yeah.
I can comment a little bit. Mainly, I'm Hans-Jørgen Andersen for 𝗘𝗂𝗏 University. So we are one of the 2 universities partners in the project, together with 𝗃𝗂𝗏 Milano. So we try to actually do what you were saying, monitor what's happening at the sites, try to report them as scientifically as we can. The booklet is out here about the narratives, where we try to gather some of these experiences at the site. It's very important when you talk about 𝗃𝗂𝗏 lighthouse and these ideas, we are talking about what is known as wicked problems. That's why it's also very difficult to move it from one context to another context area. Because wicked problems, as long as when you start touching upon them, they also change. So that's why, also from a scientific point of view, they are interesting, but they're also quite difficult to tackle. And we are not that good in the scientific community to tackle wicked problems with an architecture design and urban design. But we're getting better and learning, and it's quite interesting to be there. It's also from a scientific point of view, and we're really happy we can see the new program. There will be more research and innovations actions. This is a more coordinated support action where we play a different role. It's for me, I've been part of also EU projects, research projects and so on. But this is a bit different because we're very close to inhabitants, organizations, NGOs, housing companies, closer than we're not that close in research and innovation projects. But it gives some really, you could say, relevance of what we're doing, maybe on the account of the ridiculousness, scientific ridiculousness. We have to give a little bit on that, but then we can also work more on the relevance. I think we have to continue that track in the NEP. We could do that, because then we could also make, I would not say it's the mission thoughts, but now we call it a facility, but that we try to get also science supporting what's happening in the transformation, the green transformation, so we follow closer. I think that's a good thing with NEP, and I think we should continue that track with some of the actions.
And now I'll stop you.
Yeah.
Sorry, because first of all, it's a bit difficult to hear.
This house is made for a very special kind of dialogue. It's where people actually just speak and then it stops.
Okay.
So you have to, first of all, turn off your mics when you have been speaking. Secondly, speak in the direction of the microphone, even though you can't look at the people you're speaking to. That's not in the design of political dialogue in this house. Maybe it will be changed someday. I don't think so.
We hope so. But I will end then. But it was a little bit about the replicability for the questions, the difficulties in that respect.
Yeah. And then also about the replication, I can just say that, of course, every one of us is taking small parts of the project. So, for instance, we are in Dansk Industri DI, we are looking into this Think It, Sketch It that you saw with the students, pupils. See if we can scale that in a Danish context, because from next year we need new 10,000 what we call workplace training, and that's increased with 25%, so it's a bit difficult. So if we can use this model that we have experienced at Domea and scale it that's a Danish context, but that's another way of replicating this. So we work with the municipalities trying to convince that it's a brilliant idea to copy. So that's another way of scaling, right? Yeah, Christopher?
Thank you. ��𝗺𝗍 𝗖𝗍, Construction Products Industry, once more. I'd like to start with a thank you. We were very early supporters of the Davos Alliance, and so Oliver Martin would be extremely pleased to hear a Commission official praise the Alliance in the European Parliament. So, and for the anecdote, the last time we helped them here on the other side of Place de Luxembourg, the farmers were burning tyres. So it wasn't the best social use of a public space, but I mean, that's just on a more serious note, one of the basic principles of all of this that everybody's very keen to talk about is circularity. But we face a major hurdle. And let me illustrate this. You're in Belgium, and if you don't know your geography, we have borders with Netherlands, Germany, Luxembourg, and France. So it's a perfect place to set up a factory of products because you have a single market and you can easily cross borders with your products. This is where the happy story ends, because if you're a recycler, and we are keen to get secondary raw materials into the industry, you cannot bring waste across borders. So a little to the northeast of Brussels, we have a city called Liège, next to Maastricht and Aachen. If you want to recycle waste from these three big cities, you have to set up 3 hubs. And only when the waste is treated and has a different legal label, then can you ship it and sell it on. So we have an issue that we need to sort out with our Commission officials and the institutions. Is I understand why waste cannot cross borders. You don't want to dump it in your neighbour country. But if we are to promote circularity in construction, which is being labelled as the biggest, baddest waste producer, and we are keen to get our hands on secondary raw materials, we need to sort this out, because it's the hidden chapter in a complicated story. I'd be happy to hear anybody's point of view on this. Thank you.
I can start. I think you're pointing to something very important when it comes to the circularity. I mean, we now have the promise after good political work from von der Leyen that we're going to see a circularity act within very soon after the new commission is going to be voted through at some point. And we're going to follow that, of course, very closely, because it is this duality. I mean, yes, we don't want people to start all of a sudden just dumping trash across the border. But we have to begin to think of it as resources. But how do we keep the control? How do we make the right regulatory frame that also works? Because, yes, it's European regulation, but then there's the national regulations as well. There is a mixed match there. And if we want to develop the circular economy also when it comes to buildings, we have a lot of work to do on European level.
If I can just add to this thinking, because it's indeed a very interesting point, and just coming out from this Living Spaces initiative, we had seen a wonderful material bank in Malmö. And I know for SAB, yeah, because we sometimes think deconstruction is waste, and like you say, it cannot. So, but it can also, they really like taking stock of everything. This is in the harbor. I mean, you might be aware, it's your neighbors. And so kind of what can be reused? So it can either stay in the country, or maybe we can work on kind of supporting this process also across border. And I think Tallinn is also one, the whole city is kind of a material bank. And I think these are initiatives and projects that could be really further developed, even from the very start when you construct, already taking stock of what is in the new building and how can it be reused. I think there can be wonderful initiatives coming out of that.
I feel a little bit sad about what I'm hearing. Sorry, being everything double now. Because we are still thinking in silos. When we really want to change things and we are really aiming for the transition we're talking about, we need another way of thinking. And we didn't talk about the role of the local. What I tried to tell in my story is that the ecologies in the neighborhoods are in a way of integrated thinking. The people in a neighborhood never think in silos because everything in their lives is interwoven. It's all connected. So if they come up as experts, as you already mentioned, experts of their own lives, experts of what's going on in their neighborhoods, they come up with completely different ideas to change things. So maybe we should think a little bit more about the role of the local, not only in how we can share things, but also how we can create differently, how we can create with people that have very relevant expertise that we need, not as experts as we're talking about today, people that do have all kinds of different, limited kind of expertise, but people in a neighborhood bring together all kinds of expertise. And when we combine that with the expertise of scientists or businesses or people that are also looking for the change, I think then we can do a great job. But probably we have to start thinking about the role of what we call nearbyness, how we can change things on a scale that works for people. So maybe that's another perspective on how we can replicate, first locally, and then maybe by, well, networking. We in the Desire project, we learned how to collaborate and how to learn from each other, and we can build upon that, creating a community of practice that can grow and grow and grow.
Thank you. Are there any last comments from you? Or from the, yeah, please.
Say something just to fully agree with what was just said, and also because I noticed that something that I did not say during my presentation is that exactly because of this, the focus of the NEP facility, so this new instrument that we have, is on the revitalization of neighborhoods according to the NEP values, because we also believe that where we are more able to make a change to achieve this transformation is at neighborhood level, at local level. So thank you very much for that.
All right, but then I think it makes sense that we then end up with having the Desire project come up with 6 different recommendations for policymakers and parliamentarians here.
That's why you put us 3 on the table, right? To come with the recommendations.
I couldn't say, but you will find all 6 recommendations on the table, but I'll just highlight 2 right now. So if we need and want the new European Bauhaus and the principles and values really to take a kick-off, we need a demand. And our second recommendation is integrate NEP criteria into public procurement policy. So around 2 trillion euros annually of the EU's GDP is spent on public procurement. So when the public procurement directive and guidelines are revised, it ought to be considered to include NEP-aligned criteria, ensuring that publicly funded projects reflect the initiative's values. This integration will set a standard for quality and sustainability in public development. That was the one that I will highlight, also based on some of the questions that have been here today. And the other one, and that's perhaps related also to your comments on scaling. So we would suggest that provide technical assistance to member states through task forces. It should offer guidance and support to member states, regions and cities in implementing NEP principles and values within their national context. This assistance will help harmonize efforts across the EU and address specific regional challenges. It could be through establishing task forces, focusing on how learning and experiences arising from local initiatives and transformation projects can scale. Local learning derives from local citizens' engagement and involvement, and these local movements can give agency to rise of cross-national communities of practice, transferring knowledge and sharing local experiences. So please find funding for task forces around Europe. That's the end. And thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. This was what we could share with you today, but please feel free to contact everyone in the project, and we'll like to share whatever findings we have.